When systems go down, when tickets pile up, and your best tech walks out the door, what does all that really cost you? At CBT Nuggets, we help IT teams stay sharp, confident, and certified with online training that's built for the real world. From cybersecurity to cloud, our expert-led courses help your team close skill gaps before they turn into business risks. Invest in your team. Go to cbtnuggets.com/solutions and unlock training that makes your team sharper and your systems stronger.
Lowe's has the Labor Day deals you need to give your home a new look. Buy one, get one free select interior paint via Visa gift card rebate. Then, add the final touch with 2 for $8 on select 2.5 or 3-quart mums. Refresh your home and save big while doing it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Mums offer in-store only. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. More terms and restrictions apply. See Lowes.com/rebates for details.
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast of SR Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today NFL Wire site, about the Arizona Cardinals, recording episode 690 with my co-host, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, and this is our roster cuts extraordinaire because timing-wise is perfect, Seth. Recording on a Tuesday night. Roster cuts happened today. The Cardinals cut their roster down to 53 players, and we're here to break it all down, aren't we?
Yeah, and I mean, we broke it down pretty well, I thought, going in, and there were a couple misses, but I don't think there were misses as much as like again, with, I think Donnie Druin talked about it today, getting injury information from Jonathan Gannon's harder than getting into Fort Knox, right? Like, that just makes it tough to like make calls on guys like, that we'll discuss here.
So let us start with what were our biggest takeaways and surprises about the cuts. Now, we got some of the news on Monday. We heard Clayton Tune was cut. That was the I guess the highlight or the biggest name or most notable cut of their first group. And then they cut the rest. There weren't a ton of surprises. I would say for me, there were 2 players that were cut that were a surprise. For you, were there any of those who they let go? Were there any of them that were surprising to you?
Surprising is probably a strong word. DJ Dallas and Semi Fehoko are the ones that like stand out just from guaranteed money type stuff. But outside of that, like, no, nothing shocking, nothing earth shattering.
Yeah, I guess the 3, there'd be a third surprise if we haven't seen it now for 3 years of the last 4. They cut long snapper Aaron Brewer. But they've done that 3 out of the last 4 years, and it was simply to hold a roster spot for another player that they need to carry for a day. And yeah, for me, other than that, there were the 2 cuts that were surprising were Fehoko and DJ Dallas, but neither is earth shattering. And so for those of you who missed it, DJ Dallas, their return specials, kick returner, special teams extraordinaire, signed him to a 3-year deal last offseason. He didn't have any guaranteed money on his deal left, and he was cut. And we always kind of felt like he was a lock. I wrote a couple 3-4 weeks ago that maybe the way for, and they kept Bam Knight. And so this isn't shocking, but that's Interesting. So they did do that. Like, we knew it was going to be Connor. We knew it was going to be Trey. We knew it was going to be Amari DiMercato, and we thought the DJ Dallas was a lock because of his role on the team. But Bam Knight, if anyone, like, Bam Knight was an elite kick returner in college. I believe the last year he was in school, he led the nation in kick return average. So he can replace Dallas like that. He has higher offensive upside than Dallas. Dallas is an okay offensive player. Like, he would have made an okay third down back, like, instead of Amari DiMercato, although he's not as explosive in space that DiMercato would had like 40+ yard runs in 2 seasons or something like that. So Bam Knight gives you a little offensive upside should, for any reason, Benson or Connor go down. He gives you the return dynamic. And while he isn't the core special teams player that Dallas is, as we look around the roster, they kept more players in other positions, and we can point to specifically the safety position where they kept both Joey Blunt and Keaton Crawford, that some of the decisions they made at other positions make it so those guys can fill the role that Dallas would have had on special teams. And maybe Bam still does that, but I think it does in terms of that. That's the one player where you go, the preseason rewarded him.
Yeah, and that was, and that's the thing. People always say, like, oh, you got to keep X over DJ Dallas, and it's like, okay, well, what do they do that Dallas doesn't do, right? So, or the Michael Carter love affair that we've talked about before. They end up putting themselves in a position where Bam Knight just won a job this time, right? And so often that's not what happens. And too often what ends up happening is these guys end up, just kind of hanging around, and then they're on the practice squad, and then they come back when something happens, right? But for the most part, these guys have to show something. And we've talked about it with Carter specifically. The reason Michael Carter doesn't make the roster is because he's not better than 1, 2, or 3 at their jobs, and he doesn't play special teams.
Right. And I kept, like, that was the thing on Twitter. I was on X. I was talking about, like, Michael Carter is a nice player, but his specific role in the NFL has to be running back 2, right? He's not a fit as a starter. He's not a fit as a third down back necessarily, and he doesn't have the return experience, and so he's not better than Connor as a starter. So I had some people try to argument that he's better than Trey Benson. I'm like, no, don't come with me that. Like, he's not better than Trey Benson as a number 2, or they're even, but Benson has too much upside. Is he better than Amari DiMercato player side by side? Maybe, but that you're not beating him on the roster for being better than Amari DiMercato. You have to beat him out because you're the better third down back, and Amari DiMercato is the best third down back on the team.
He is, but here's also the thing: is like the third down back is just so rarely utilized, right? Like.
Yeah, well, which is weird because Petzing is all about it. Like, when passing, like, third down package, it's DiMercato in there, like third and long, or like in those obvious, like, it's like those 1990s when every team had a quote unquote third down back, and then he had to be better. He either have to be the return specialist or a guy that's an ace on special teams, and he's neither one of those. And so he was like, there were 4 running backs ahead of him that were better in their role than Carter could be. And Carter's like, that's awesome. And which means if he comes back on the practice squad, which he could, because this year he's a vested veteran, which means he can simply resign. He's not going to get claimed, so he can go somewhere else. He can resign to the practice squad. It'll be interesting to see which guys do that. Now, for me, the Fehoko cut was the most interesting because of a couple of things. Because he seemed to do, like, his signing seemed to be the Zach Pascal signing, right? Like he a big receiver, special teams, a little bit offensive upside. It seemed like the TV broadcast was doing their best to pump him up even before Cardinals fans had seen him at all. He had the good offensive performance in both preseason games, scoring a touchdown, making big plays, and then also making plays on special teams. You're like, oh, he earned his spot. And then they only kept 5 receivers, and they cut him instead of Xavier Weaver. And on top of that, Fehoko has $1 million guaranteed salary. And so for me, while that was it didn't shock me. It was a surprise, but I wondered if it was a temporary move, and maybe he's going to sign to the practice squad, and maybe they'll use him to elevate. But I feel like with the roster that there are 2 moves that have yet to be done, and then I think the result will end up with Fehoko and Brewer back on the roster. Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of wondering. Everybody's, oh, Fehoko, and I get it, man. Like, had a nice 2 preseason games, played well, but at the end of the day, like, they're, I think, 4th lowest usage in three wide receiver sets, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's just the big thing, right? Like, just why do you need a 5th, 6th wide receiver, right? Like, obviously you need 5, but
Yeah.
why do you need a 6th? And then if they bring him back, then, like, again, it's all hullabaloo for nothing.
Yeah. Well, and that's like the Xavier Weaver for me. Like he's like a better version of Greg Dortch, in my opinion. If that makes but you've got Greg Dortch, and he's a playmaker, and so you're not going to play Weaver over Dortch. But he's faster, he's longer, he's about the same. He's about the same frame, and does the same thing. Like he's more slot and returner. And so I felt like keeping Weaver on the roster wasn't more about this year as it was about developing him. And he would have played the role that he did last year, which is basically inactive on game days, because they would keep 4 wide receivers active for offense. Fehoko is the Pascal, special teams, maybe get in a game to block on a run play. And that Weaver would be for next year. And then when Greg Dortch is an unrestricted free agent next year, that you just slide Weaver into that role, who has a arguably better skill set.
Right. And so, the other thing is this, and I'm not even going to try to lie that I watched a lot of Simi Fehoku's pass blocking reps in preseason. Anybody that tells you they did is lying. But I mean, we also know how important that is, right? To what this organization wants to do from an offensive standpoint. So, guys like Fehoko, those guys, like, what is their effort from run blocking? And I'm just going to use PFF. I hate PFF grades for the most part, but like, when you look at the PFF grades, it wasn't good in the preseason in terms of run blocking. And that's all we're talking about here. But like, so that's a thing too. And again, I don't think that he's gone, right? Like,
well, he said himself that if he goes on sign now, which is funny, I will find this funny that because he was the one, he has a presence on TikTok. He already did before when he was with the Chargers. He said that he talked about the waiver wire, and I'm like, bro doesn't know that he doesn't go on waivers this year. This is the first year he doesn't. He's a vested veteran, so he's not going to get claimed for anyone. He could sign with someone else, but he's going to sign with the practice squad, and he said that he was going to. So we can expect to see Andre Bocelli and Simi Fehoko on the practice squad when the team makes the announcement tomorrow or Thursday.
Right, exactly. So, well, and that, again, like I'm just curious, and you obviously know my take on all this stuff, but like, how often? And I'd love to get your opinion. How often are guys that are, cuts, 5, 6 wide receivers cuts, and then like go make significant difference in the NFL, right? Like, people are like acting like he's better than Michael Wilson, right? So
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's true. It'll be interesting to see. I think for me, the surprise was that Will Hernandez got activated off pup.
yeah, dude, that was
Because
so weird. But again, that's the Jonathan Gannon effect. Like, we just don't ever know
no,
like what the
and
heck's going on.
Because you could have gone with the pup route, and he starts. Then he doesn't have to occupy a roster spot. He's on the active roster, and here's the other part that's important: is that they kept only 9 linemen on the active roster. They have their starters. They have Kelvin Beachum, who's your swing tackle. You've got Will Hernandez, which by default is the backup guard. John Gaines, the backup center, and Josh Fryer, the undrafted kid, as your developmental tackle. And kind of like the Christian Jones, a guy that you're going to see what he can do this year. And then after Jonah Williams leaves in a year and Kelvin Beachum leaves in a year, hopefully Fryer is good enough to be at least the backup swing tackle in a year. That said, if I would have, like, if they'd have put Will Hernandez on the roster and kept Nick Leverett, I'd be like, okay, that means Will's almost ready, that he doesn't need the first month of the season, but he's almost ready. And in this case, they didn't have another guard, which means, so unless, and this is a hard thing to do right now because health between now and 2 weeks from now or a week from now is going to be difficult because you can only make 2 practice squad elevations. And if you're already guaranteeing that you're going to, like, Will's not ready to be active on game days, then they need to guarantee that Nick Leverett or Royce Newman or whoever is on the practice squad and ready to go. But the fact that they didn't have Leverett on the final roster tells me, okay, that they expect Hernandez to be ready to practice this week and next week, and that is healthy enough to be active on game day, and perhaps if needed, he would be healthy enough to play in an NFL game if, someone got hurt.
Yeah, and that's a interesting question in terms of how they're going to go about the line, specifically, like you're saying, the interior line. Like, Fryer's probably not even going to be eligible, right? Like, on game days, like, he's going to be inactive.
No, he's going to be inactive.
But like, unless, and again, we have no idea, unless they think he can play guard too for the short term, right?
Right. Even though what did we see? He played left tackle, right tackle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. And I'm not saying he can, but like, because again, but we just have no idea on anything with Hernandez. So like, it's tough to make a decision or a call on that.
Then the other thing, like, we were correct in that Hayden Connor and Christian Jones landed in IR, designated to return. So they burned their 2 designated to returns on that. Justin Jones makes the roster. Then BJ Ojulari, Bilal Nichols, Walter Nolan all start the season on the regular season pup. I'm on the record, so like, I think Bilal Nichols is done with football. I think that's what's happened. Nolan, and I think Nolan's rookie year is mostly going to be cooked as a result of this. And BJ Ojulari is what in the world? I don't know. But they basically created at least 2 future problems for the roster. And that's basically it. They kept 7 defensive linemen. So like LG Collier made it, Dante Stills made it, Justin Jones is on it, and PJ Mustafer. You know what? I think you would agree. Doesn't this with no Aaron Brewer on the roster, don't you think that is pointing towards Justin Jones going on IR, since they already used the 2 designated before?
Return. Yeah.
That they're going to put Jones on and bring back
100%. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. But with that, let's. The other thing that was a surprise for me: 11 defensive backs, and which I guess he's the surprise still on the roster. So Bam Knight was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't shocked. Will Hernandez was surprised, but not a shock. PJ Mustafer on the roster made sense, because if we thought Justin Jones was healthy, then Mustafer. If Justin Jones isn't healthy, Mustafer's on that. We said that. But the one guy that I think for me is the surprise on the roster is Elijah Jones.
Yeah,
cornerback.
And again, like, we've been playing this game, like, obviously we think the IR with Justin Jones, right, for Aaron Brewer, but what if it's not? Like, then who's the guy? Is it Elijah Jones that gets cut? Like, that's the thing to watch. We think it's Justin Jones, so like, we're not, but
all signs point to that,
right?
But yeah, in fact, let's move on to the next. We can talk about what we think is coming. Coming up next on the Res of C-Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Let's talk about what we think is still to come, because when we say final cuts, it's really it's final cuts before the other cuts. So we'll talk about what do we think is coming next. That's coming up next on Res of C-Red.
Save big during Labor Day at Lowe's. Get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, buy more to get up to an additional 20% off. Shop even more savings with 3 Stay Green 1 cubic foot vegetable and flower garden soil bags for $10. This Labor Day, take care of your home for less at Lowe's. We help, you save. Valid through 9/3. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. Select locations only. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details. Lowe's knows tough jobs call for tougher tools. The new DeWalt Elite Series power tool accessories are built to last for the pro who doesn't stop. With precision fitment, durability, and impact resistance, finishing jobs faster has never been easier. Shop the new DeWalt Elite Series at an everyday low price exclusively at Lowe's. We help, you save.
We're back on the Rise of C-Red podcast, best our Cardinals talk on the web. What we think is coming up, and I think we already kind of spilled the beans on that. Let the cat out of the bag in terms of what we think is happening. Aaron Brewer being cut because we know he's going to have to go. That means there's at least one roster move, and I believe there's 2. I believe there are 2 roster moves that are going to happen that will result in Aaron Brewer being re-signed, and I think also maybe Semi Fehoko. And one is Justin Jones has a knee injury. We don't know anything about it, but the fact that he has been sitting on this for a while, and the fact that they kept 7 defensive linemen signals to both of us that he's going to be put on IR, and that at some point he's going to be designated to return. Then that leaves them with 6 defensive linemen, which is a normal number. They re-sign Aaron Brewer. That makes sense. What do you think is going to happen? Like, I'm 100% convinced you can't keep 11 defensive backs on your roster, can you?
I mean, when your coach is a defensive back coach, I mean, I don't see why not. But yeah, I mean, that's the expectation, right?
Yeah, and it's like we've seen teams go with 9, and this team's got 11. So I think there's going to be a trade. That's just unless somebody unless one person in the quarterback room got hurt,
and we just don't know about it. Yeah, and that's always a plausibility, right? Like you can see guys that get hurt, and then so it's like, we can't do that. But yeah, I mean, again, from what we have seen, what we know, I would assume Elijah Jones goes after in the next week. I mean, it's usually
Yeah.
sooner than later, right? Once we get the waiver claims, but I assume it'll be in the next week.
Well, we'll know about waiver claims
Tomorrow, right?
but probably before the show is published, because that's just how it goes. I don't usually get up till Wednesday afternoon. So waiver claims will be announced about noon on. So actually about sometime Wednesday morning, because the waiver claim period is by noon Eastern, and so after that we'll know who is claimed, and then they can start forming a practice squad. So know about waiver claims. We'll know which Cardinals players were claimed, if any, and kind of go from there. But yeah, it feels like if there are any waiver claims that Jones or Keitrell Clark could be the first guy off the roster. And I'm like, maybe there's a trade market for Elijah Jones. Not a whole lot. And one of our buddies suggested maybe Keitrell Clark has the most value to trade, because he's versatile, because he can play in special teams, he can play outside, he can play nickel, and he can play safety. But I know the 5 safeties. That wasn't a surprise, because Joey Blunt is a core special teamer, and I think they like Keaton Crawford enough to keep him, whether he's active or not, or just to play on special teams. So I thought 5 safeties was they were going to give up a position somewhere else to keep 5 safeties. I couldn't have guessed in a million years that they were going to keep 6 cornerbacks. Last year they kept 6 cornerbacks for a day, and that was so that they could put Elijah Jones on IR. So unless Elijah Jones got hurt again or Denzel Burke got hurt, well, hopefully it's not one of their 3 starters, right?
Right, exactly. As long as it's not Max, Garrett, or Will, and quite frankly, and I'm not saying this to be flippant, you could probably, and obviously, especially Will, you don't want to lose any rookie time, but you could probably afford to lose a guy for a short period of time. I'm not saying for a season, for a short period of time in Max or Will, just from like the Clark can play, like you said, versatility, can play inside, play outside. Like you'd be okay. I don't want to say like you'd be fine, you'd be okay, but yeah, like ideally that's not what's going to happen, right?
And if you had to guess, if the Cardinals are going to put any waiver claims in, where do you think that happens? Now they're number 16, so winning a waiver claim is going to be tough, because if it's a coveted player, there are 15 teams that have priority over them. But where do you think they might use their waiver claims?
Corner. Really, that's it. Maybe inside linebacker, but like
Maybe
corner,
receiver.
that's really it. I mean, maybe, but like who's out there? Like here's I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some names like Marquez Valdez Scantley got cut, but like also,
but is he
right? Like, is he the answer?
Well, and I gotta check, because I think he's a vested vet.
Oh, that's true. I'm not even thinking waivers, but yeah. So that's the thing, is like I mean I wouldn't take anybody off waivers that I've seen. Again, I haven't poured through it, but over Fahoku. So like that's my thing.
That makes sense. And that corner would make sense to get one. Maybe inside back. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. I feel like the waiver claim this year feels less likely, and that any player that they might want would be gone anyway.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing that people don't get, is like at the end of the day, these guys that get picked up quick, they're gonna go to the teams that have the top.
Much like the Cardinals
used to
had. Yes. Remember the 2019 year when they got like 7 waiver claims?
Right. Well, think about this too, Jess. Think about this. You kind of mentioned it, right? But what, like a wide receiver, for instance, Tennessee, New England, who cut a wide receiver, those teams probably need wide receivers, right? So like the Cardinals, so the top guys are going to get claimed pretty quick. Like you said, 16 is a tough spot. Think about, I mean, the 49ers, like they need wide receivers like crazy right now.
Yes, they do.
And so like that's the hard thing. That's why I said I think it could end up being like an inside backer type, right? Because they only kept 4 and usually you have 5. We talked about the roster construction thing last week. But so I could see them finding that guy.
Do you see them trading for a player, or would it be trading a player for a pick?
No, I mean, unless you're going to go get Micah Parsons, and they've already like invested heavily. And don't get me wrong, Micah Parsons would immediately be the best defensive like player on the roster, right? Probably the best defensive, like one of the top 2 defensive players in the entire NFC West. But it's hard, like unless you're going to give up, like Zaven, Jordan Birch, a first round pick and a second round pick, right? Like you're not, like that's not a play you make with how your roster is constructed right now. So there's not a guy off the dome that I'm like, oh yeah, they could, that they could go get that like helps them immediately. But I'm sure that there are guys out there that would fit what they need, because again, we're talking about a very like transitional position. Look at how many inside backers the Cardinals have had over the last 3 years under Gannon.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, that kind of takes stats. Coming up next on the Rest of the Red Podcast, Special Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's talk about what we think's coming for those injuries. We alluded to it briefly, but let's talk about more. Let's come in next on Rise Up C Red. We're back on the Rise of the Red Podcast, Special Cardinals Talk on the Web. Hayden Connor, Christian Jones on IR, designated to return. Who knows if and when they will come back. We think Justin Jones will go on injured reserve, so he's going to miss some time. But B.J. Ojulari, Bilal Nichols, Walter Nolan remain on PUP. What's your disappointment level for Ojulari and Nolan? Maybe like not saying that was bad, but just that's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean it's a super bummer, especially with how well it looked like they were going to, or like how much they were going to be able to get out of them, right? Especially Nolan. Like you just think about year 1, we talk about this all the time, year 1 D linemen, they take a while to develop. And so him in that system, getting that opportunity would have been so valuable this year. And we saw with Darius, like it basically stunts the entire first year growth, right?
Yeah, I thought that from the beginning, that when the first report came out that he will miss all, if not like most, if not all of training camp, I'm like, oh, even if they didn't put him, they carried him on the roster. The fact that a rookie defensive lineman has not taken any live full contact reps, that means the first half of this season is cooked, like the young people like to say. And right. We kind of saw that with B.J. Ojulari when he was a rookie, because he had that knee injury and he basically didn't do anything in training camp, and then he was on the active roster and he basically was a nobody until the second half of the season. And Nolan now is going to have to miss 4 games before he can even start practicing. Now, is it super important that he get 100% healed? Yes, that is the most important thing, especially when they have the the seeming depth on their defensive line that they have, that he would be a rotational piece at best, because you've got Darius, so you've got two vets in Calais and Dalvin Tomlinson who are the starters. The former first round pick, the second year first round pick, Darius Robinson starting, and then you've got LJ Collier and Dante Stills and PJ Mustipher behind them. Like, you would rather a Walter Nolan instead of PJ Mustipher, but then it's still good. I think primary, and I think this is the smart move. Let him get 100, like, get him healthy, get him trained, get him stronger, and doing the third resistance, or the third level, or whatever they call it, drills as part of his rehab, and then give him 2-3 weeks of practice, and then let him start doing it. And we can look forward to probably 6 games of solid rookie Nolan by the time he gets worked into the rotation.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, as long as he's back for the playoff run, right? Like, and then is fresh in the playoffs. That's the biggest thing for them right now.
Yeah. And then on Ojulari, like I said, Nichols, I think we're not going to see him play for the Cardinals again, because one, if he's able to come back and play football, the Cardinals will have cut him next offseason anyway, because there will be no guaranteed money left on his deal. Ojulari, though, that's the big, what is going on? What's happening? Why is a torn ACL now going to take 13, 14 months to why is it going to take 14 months at least?
Right. That's such a weird thing.
Because even Will Hernandez, 320-pound human being, tore his ACL.
Like three, a lot more than 320, bro. But yeah, I get your point. Like, yeah,
he's ready to go.
Right. And so that's the hard part, right? You look at it and you go, how is this guy not ready yet? And so
it just doesn't make sense. Well, and even to go like Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers, who had it wasn't just his ACL, it was the ACL and MCL or something like that. And it happened in week 7. And Kyle Shanahan is saying that he'll be back probably week 6. So that means playing within a year. When we saw Ty Matthew as a rookie, and he had his knee was shredded that rookie year, he was back in 2014 in about playing at about 10, 11, I think it was about 11 months. And we are closing in on 13 months, and BJ hasn't even been cleared to practice.
Right. It makes it really tough.
That's just weird, man. And maybe honestly, because like we talked about how they seemed to move on in the outside linebacker room without BJ, maybe they foresaw this. Maybe they knew that his knee wasn't responding the way it should, which is why because last year they were counting on BJ. This year, even with him coming back, they're like, yeah, we've moved on. Josh Sweat, Baron Browning,
right,
Jordan
exactly.
Birch. They're like, yeah, if he comes, okay. But it's almost that it's those things where now they make sense. Like, now it makes sense what they did in the draft and free agency at outside linebacker, knowing now that BJ's not ready. The drafting of both Will Johnson and Denzel Burke made no sense at the time. But afterwards, when you hear about Sean Murphy Bunting, you're like, oh, that makes sense. It's or when they traded for Hollywood Brown, and then we find out about Hopkins' suspension, you're like, oh, makes sense. And it's almost like we don't have the full picture all the time.
Well, we definitely don't. And that's what makes it hard, because we're just speculating off of what we're seeing. And so when you look at it, how do they end up getting there? That's going to be the question that we all are really interested in, and how how it gets to, because at the end of the day, these guys, or this team specifically, they need all these guys to be healthy to continue to grow. And our Ojulari, it's a tough thing, and you and I, and we hate saying it obviously about Cardinals players, right? But like, injured players stay injured. I mean, it's just a reality of the life, right? Like, these guys that are injured stay injured all the time, and you hate to see it for a Cardinal player, but that's not unexpected, right? Like, that's how these guys, come in, and that's how they end. And it's just unfortunate a lot of the times when that does happen, because you look at a guy like Ojulari and you go, oh, what could have been? But that's also the NFL, and it's an unfortunate and violent business that there's so many guys that we could say that about, right?
Yeah, like Rondale Moore is one of those now.
Oh, I know, right? Poor Rondale Moore, and he's not even a Cardinal anymore, man.
Right. Poor guy. Poor guy had another leg injury. What was the injury? Did we ever hear? What was it? Because he tore his ACL last year in a joint practice.
Right. And then this year it was just something even worse, it sounds like.
No. And like, he'd always battled like groin and hamstring stuff. Then it's the one thing about football that's hard. Like, you hate to call guys busts when they get hurt. But
right,
like
100%. It's really difficult to feel that way about guys.
And sometimes players bust out because they're just not good players. But when they just don't stay healthy, you're like, that's their body betraying them. But I mean, it's the reality of it. Like, Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols, those look like really solid defense free agent signings, because they were like, what, the last two, like, Jones had played in every game for 2 years. Bilal Nichols had played in every game for 3 years. They'd missed like 5 games in their career, maybe combined. And Justin Jones led in 3 games IR. Bilal Nichols 6 games IR, and both are hurt. Well, in the case of Nichols, still hurt, and Justin Jones is hurt again. And so you look at, Monty busted. Well, are they bust? So, like, I guess they are, but is that Monty's fault? Is that their fault? It wasn't because they played poorly. It's just they just ended up being a bad deal because of that, and because the Cardinals are seemingly first when it comes to signing defensive linemen. And I shouldn't say that after with the 2 signings they added this year.
Right, exactly.
Because like, Jordan Phillips was not good. And what was the thing about Jordan Phillips? He was productive and had never been hurt before. And then he was hurt the entire time here, and apparently is only good when he's with and guess who just re-signed with the Bills?
I know, right?
He is like, in Buffalo, he has superpowers, and everywhere else he's just like, yeah.
I know, right? And that's what's so funny. He goes to Miami, he goes to Arizona, and it's like, but he goes to Buffalo, and it's like, dang, this guy can play.
It's wild. Anything else of note that you want to discuss, that you want to bring up with these roster moves?
Just going to be intriguing to follow up, right? Like, again, what happens now? 11 DBs, way too many. 4 inside linebackers seems light, but we've seen stuff like that before. Do they add a 6 wide receiver, or are they comfortable with 5 and then elevating guys on game days? Like, those are all things I'm looking forward to here.
We will not have a show until next week, as we'll start getting ready for week 1. If there's anything critical, it'll probably be me doing a solo show or bringing someone else on. But
I can do it from the drive to Vegas. I'll just call in. I'll be like a caller, and we can
long time, first time.
Yeah, exactly. Been listening for a decade, Jess. First time calling you.
Awesome, man. Well, we will be back next week. That is Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up, See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.
Roll!